Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Command Center in the studio of the National Television Network, NTN. I also want to welcome you to the program Agriculture on the Move. I am Philip Sidney, your host. Today's program, we will update you on the many projects and other projects to be implemented in the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries, Natural Resources, and Cooperatives. And those programs or projects is executed by the Special Projects Unit in that department. And it's headed by none other than Mr. Eden Compton, who is the coordinator of that project. And of course, he is ably assisted by his secretarial leader, Paul. I must tell you, Mr. Compton is so dedicated to this position. You would pass near his office on a Sunday or holiday, Saturday, his vehicle is parked there. That's to show you how important the projects in that ministry were to Mr. Compton. Welcome to the program, Mr. Compton.
Thanks ever so much, Mr. Sidney.
Mr. Compton, tell us about the genesis of that project. How did it originate?
All right. The whole mandate of the Special Projects Unit is to develop and implement projects to support the priority policies and programs of the Department of Agriculture. The unit was established in 2013 to help implement 27 projects funded under EU Banana Accompanying Measures program. The last project was completed, the EU phase of it was completed in December of 2018, and that's the National Diagnostic Facility, which we will discuss, obviously, later.
Okay.
Currently, there are 6 projects being implemented, and I'll just go through them quickly, briefly, and we can go through them in more detail later. The first one is the construction of an agro-processing facility at Fonso in Babono to be utilized by the St. Lucia Network of Rural Women Producers, the Babono cluster. The second one is the design and construction of an agricultural administrative complex just adjacent to the Ministry of Infrastructure building. The third one is the completion of the National Diagnostic Facility, and that's the Government of St. Lucia phase of the National Diagnostic Facility. The fourth one is the design and construction of a meat processing facility at La Pelle in Dennery. Next is the construction of a banana ripening facility at Lakai in Dennery. The last one is the relocation of the Boseju Livestock Station to Volet in Mikud. And so far, these are the 6 projects that are currently being implemented.
Okay, let's go into a little more detail. You spoke about the processing facilities for the St. Lucia Network of Rural Women, that is the Babono cluster.
Yeah.
I know, of course, people are aware of the Fonso agro-processing plant. So give us some detail as far as the facility goes.
Right, the Fonso agro-processing plant was established under the Banana Accompanying Measures program.
Okay.
The building was retrofitted and refurbished. That is different. It has been listed out to Paradise Foods St. Lucia Limited.
Okay, good.
And over the years, I'm sure you have seen that the Department of Agriculture has been establishing these agro-processing centers at different points on the island. The whole idea is to develop capacity in rural communities so that agricultural entrepreneurs can expand from just field or primary production to agro-processing or value-added production. So this facility, or I should say the last one that was implemented was at the end of 2018. And that was for the St. Lucia Network of Rural Women Producers, the Miku cluster.
Right.
And that was down at Angers. So they are in production. They are producing chocolates and jams and jellies, confectionaries, juices, etc. But this one is being constructed for the St. Lucia Network of Rural Women Producers, the Babono cluster. That's a different group. Now, the contract was issued in November of last year, 2019. The building is actually, I should say, 97% complete now, and it consists of hot, wet, and dry processing rooms, storage rooms for chemicals, for packaging material, and also for finished produce. There's an office, a produce preparation room, and of course there are change rooms and bathrooms and toilets, both for male and female. It's kind of compact, but just enough for the ladies. So hopefully by September this year, they should start production because they've got quite a bit of their equipment already. Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of completing everything and allowing them to start producing. Okay. Right.
The Angers processing plant, that is for the Miku cluster.
Miku cluster.
Give St. Lucia a little more, some more details as to its establishment. See how many women are operating there.
Yes, for the Angers processing plant, like the Barbon one, also, the group is made up of approximately 20 to 25 rural women. Mm-hmm. And they were operating from their homes, sometimes in conditions that are not too food safety friendly, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So they needed an environment where they can produce and where they can sell their products to hotels and supermarkets and various distribution outlets. Okay. And so far they've been successful. So the Barbon rural women are definitely trying to do the same thing.
Okay. I noticed there, I know you didn't mention it, but the cocoa fermentary, mm-hmm. Is it part and parcel of the special projects?
Yes, it was also retrofitted and refurbished under the EU project. Okay. And currently there are these ongoing discussions with a group of farmers, cocoa farmers, down in the east of the island. Mm-hmm. And they are hoping that they can manage the facility and start with the processing of cocoa. Right?
Okay, great. Okay, let's move up to another project which I think is very dear to the minister, because I remember him saying that before he leaves politics, he would like to see the construction of an administrative building, which I think the venue is at Union Agricultural Station.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little more about that?
Yes. The whole idea regarding trying to establish the administrative complex, the agricultural administrative complex, is to sort of develop a one-stop shop where a range of activities will be provided for stakeholders in the agricultural sector. Mm-hmm. In the building, for example, some units and divisions of the Department of Agriculture will be accommodated. For example, the engineering division, and they are into soil and water conservation and agricultural equipment and that sort of thing. And also the extension offices for Region 1 and Region 2, mm-hmm. Grosile, Barbono, will be accommodated there. Also our donor and implementing agencies that we work closely with, the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation and Agriculture, AICA, the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute, CARDI, mm-hmm. and of course there'll be an office for FAO. The administrative offices of the Department of Agriculture, the waterfront, they occupy the 4th and 5th floor in one of the NIC buildings. They will be accommodated there. So from there, there'll be quite a few services that will be provided for our stakeholders. Not only that, but also the National Diagnostic Facility, which we are going to discuss later, mm-hmm. Will be part of the agricultural complex. So when we discuss the National Diagnostic Facility, we look at all the various services, mm-hmm. and you'll have a picture as to the plan that is in place for Union as far as agricultural development is concerned.
Yeah, because I realize they'll be complementing each other.
Yes.
I think originally, before the separate building was looked at, that diagnostic lab, they had looked at another floor for the administrative building, but they yes. realized it was not constructed to take another floor. Yes. So, but let us see how the diagnostic lab mm-hmm. and the administrative building complement each other. So tell us a little more about the diagnostic lab. Okay,
the diagnostic facility is a gift from the European Union. Okay. Or I should say most of it, mm-hmm. To the tune of 11 million Eastern Caribbean dollars. and that included construction of the building with all the doors and windows and completion of the ground floor with the tiling and partitioning and everything, and also the procurement of equipment for the laboratories, all on the ground floor. And the government of St. Lucia now stepped in to complete the second phase, which is the government of St. Lucia phase, and that's completion of the first floor, all the partitioning, tiling, the ceiling, and provision of services like electricity, water, air conditioning, telecommunications, and all of that. Now, if you have to look at the services that are going to be provided, the building is a lengthy building with two wings. There's the east wing and the west wing. So the west wing houses all the offices for the Veterinary Livestock Services Division on the first floor, and the ground floor, all the laboratories, the veterinary-related laboratories, animal-related laboratories, and the east wing will be housing all the plant-related laboratories for the Plant Research and Development Division, and also the metrology lab of the Bureau of Standards. They're into calibration of instruments and equipment and all of that. And there are going to be 3 food laboratories, very important to work with closely with the agro-processors, because if you know, the agro-processors are now basically on their own.
Yes.
And the department has recognized that they have to be assisted. They have to be assisted. So what I want to say is that when you look at the services coming from the West Wing, the Veterinary Livestock Services Division, you have officers who go out and advise farmers on various aspects of livestock production, officers who advise farmers on various aspects of animal health. You have the veterinarians who supervise them and get involved in their work. You have quarantine officers at the ports of entry. You have veterinary public health officers who inspect slaughtered animals, ante-mortem inspections, post-mortem inspections, wholesomeness inspections to be sure that the meat is suitable for human consumption. And coming from the laboratories, there's the hematology. There'll be a hematology, like a hospital actually, hematology laboratory dealing with all blood-related disorders and blood parasites. There's also the microbiology laboratory, identification of microorganisms or pathogenic organisms like bacteria, fungi, viruses, and all of that. Serology lab dealing with the identification of antibodies in serum or other body fluids. You also have the parasitology lab. That's also very, very important because animals don't eat like us from a plate. They eat off the ground. In the process, they ingest a lot of parasitic eggs and parasites. And of course, these parasites, it's an ongoing control management sort of thing because they continuously ingest. Yes, and then they have to be identified, they have to be managed and everything. Also the external parasites, ticks, flies, fleas, mites, and all of that. Those that you can eradicate, you eradicate, like the amblyomma tick, that can be eradicated. And a host of them. So the parasitology lab is going to be very busy. There's also a histology lab, pathology lab, post-mortem, and most importantly, they have to be involved in a lot of surveillance because we have to start developing what is known as a pest and disease list for animals and also for plants. Because, for example, if you want to sell goats to Barbados and the authorities over there ask for disease list, what diseases that you have in St. Lucia that can affect small ruminants in Barbados. If you don't have that, they can turn you down. So all of that has to be done. So there's a lot of work. And similarly, on the plant side, if I may, there's an entomology lab to deal with a number of the range of insects we have affecting plants and crop production. The soil science lab, and that shows you clearly that agriculture is a science and there has to be a scientific approach. Before somebody cultivates land, for example, before thinking of soil conservation measures or anything, the ideal thing to do is to collect soil samples. Go to your extension officer, get some guidance as to how to collect the soil, where to collect it, the quantity to collect, how to package it for the laboratory, and all of that. At the end of the day, the results from the lab will tell you clearly that whether you have deficiencies in the soil, nutritional deficiencies, micro elements or macro elements, and what type of fertilizer, the combination of fertilizer, the combination of these nutrients that can use so that you can address the soil situation. And the food processing, food technology, I mentioned the 3 food laboratories to work with the agro-processors, surveillance and monitoring of plant-related diseases,
So in other words, it's a one-stop shop, put it that kind of
shop.
way. Okay, I'll come back to this, but we'll do for our first break.
Yes.
You're watching Agriculture on the Move. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon. Don't go away.
What's in the food you're eating? Do you really even know? All the chemicals and hormones used to accelerate their growth. All the artificial flavoring, sweeteners and colors too. We consume and we don't spare a thought for the damage that they'll do. No, think about the children. Think about the children. How will we save them? Chemicals and GMOs are not the solution. Use organic and join revolution.
Excessive agrochemical use, additives, and genetically modified foods are harmful to health and the environment. Join the good food revolution. Grow, buy, and consume organic. A message from Rise St. Lucia and the Ministry of Sustainable Development with funding from the GEF Small Grants Program, UNDP.
The good food revolution.
Welcome back to the program, Agriculture on the Move, with me, Mr. Eden Compton, who is the coordinator for our special projects in the Department of Agriculture. Mr. Compton, I just want to go back a bit because I'm so pleased to hear about the construction of this new facility, in that I'm looking at safety, food safety. We are looking at the importation of meats. Is there going to be some sort of inspection of meats coming into the island?
Yes, obviously. Like I said, the European Union, part of what they did was to bring in a range of equipment for the laboratory. And yes, there will be equipment to test meat and meat products being brought into the country. And from the Veterinary Livestock Services Division, there are officers, veterinary public health officers, of course, who do the inspection, inspect containers of meat to be sure that the meat is suitable for human consumption. Anything that doesn't look like it's suitable for human consumption, of course, can be taken to the laboratory and can be tested to see what exactly the problem is with it.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. On the plant side, I know, for example, years ago, of course, we import fertilizers. And one of the things I know that was very troublesome for the farmers, not knowing exactly what the nutrients levels were in, for example, the N and the P and the K. Will there be some way in the diagnostic lab where they'll be able to find out exactly what ingredients and the level of percentage of that ingredient or ingredients in the fertilizer?
Certainly, and that's a problem we face in St. Lucia, because a lot of our farmers, all they do is to just apply fertilizer.
Correct.
You know, fertilizer comes in. For example, if a banana farmer plants his bananas, first and foremost, they would want to apply a nitrogen-based fertilizer for leaf growth, early leaf growth and everything, which is good. But chances are you can apply a nitrogen fertilizer, and just supposing the soil is already saturated with nitrogen. You understand? So you just don't apply. That's why I mentioned earlier, the ideal thing is to collect a soil sample and take it to the lab to find out the status, the nutritional status of your soil. So when this is done, you can be guided as to what fertilizers that you can apply. You understand? And similarly, the lab can take samples of the fertilizers that are brought in and can test them to see if at all the combination of nutrients in there are
what is said on the
the
label.
same as what's written on the label. Yes. So all of these, because I keep saying that, you know, agriculture is a science, and if we want to see any further growth and development of the agricultural subsector, there has to be a scientific approach as to how we proceed.
Okay. Yeah. The other thing is the question of traceability. Again, even locally, farmers are using chemicals on their crops, and sometimes we don't know, you know, whether they have stuck to the regime in terms of spray to when they're supposed to harvest. You also have the problem of pre-larceny, where people will go in and steal your crops before it's really got into the gestation period. So will there be somewhere where in that lab where there'll be some traceability can be tested as to what's in that particular commodity?
Yes. The food laboratories can do that. The food laboratories will definitely be able to do that. And you can look at chemical residues in food.
Right.
Right. So if, for example, you use a pesticide and you don't use the pesticide as recommended, or a farmer might decide that, he wants money and he'll go and pick his cabbages very early.
Yes.
You understand? Not taking into consideration the withdrawal period. And by so doing, the consumers can end up consuming residues in the cabbage. So all of these things can be taken care of by the food laboratories. So samples can be collected and the produce can be tested to see if there are residues.
Definitely.
Residues.
So in other words, that complex, it's like I said, it's a one-stop shop.
One-stop shop. Yes.
So that, if somebody goes in there to get a system, because what's happening now, I think we're so fragmented.
Yes.
Right, you have an office here, and you come into Castries to get information, then you're saying to Union, then you're saying to Barata.
Exactly.
I think it's very cumbersome.
Yes.
But how soon do you think that this lab will be in operation?
The lab, well, if I can tell you, the government of St. Lucia phase is like probably 98% complete.
Okay.
So as of this month, staff of the Veterinary and Livestock Services Division will start moving in, start carrying, their files and some of their furniture and that sort of thing. Staff of the Plant Research and Development Division, and also the metrology lab of the Bureau of Standards. So gradually they'll start this month, start moving in. Hopefully they can issue the completion certificate, and the Department of Agriculture can take over the building hopefully also this month.
Oh, great.
Yes.
That sounds good.
Yes.
But let's go back to the administrative building. Where it's at now in terms of getting the process ready for building, and what's the time frame on getting this project completed?
Yes. At this point, there are ongoing discussions regarding the funding aspect of it, and it's pretty much advanced, because the situation is all of these offices, like you rightly say, are scattered. And then the government of St. Lucia is paying a significant around, over $1 million, way over $1 million in rent. Wow. So the idea is that the monies that are being paid now can be channeled to a lending institution to fund the construction of the complex.
Correct.
And once this is done, it's not going to cost government any more than it's costing now.
Right.
So that's the whole idea. And the discussions are pretty much advanced. Once all the discussions are completed, the department can move into the next phase, which is the design phase of the facility. Usually that can take up to 6 months, but we are hoping that we can pull through with it in 4 months.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have the Bureau of Standards going to be housed in the diagnostic facility too?
Yes, only the metrology lab of the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards.
Okay.
And they are into the calibration of instruments and equipment, perfection of weights and measures and that sort of thing. And then they offer services to, quite a few entities in the private sector. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, let's go down to Beauséjour. Of course, we are aware of the Beauséjour Livestock Station is no more, and included in at Beauséjour is the meat processing facility. Could you give us an update, one, as far as the meat processing facility is concerned, and then you can tell us about the new site for the livestock station at Volet?
Yes. Well, the meat processing facility is going to be a modern, multi-species facility designed to enhance food safety, to build consumer confidence in locally produced meat and meat products, and also to stimulate livestock production. And I just want to explain a little. when I say to enhance food safety, in that you're aware of animals being slaughtered all over the island by butchers. Now, despite the fact that you have officers from the Veterinary and Livestock Services Division doing the ante-mortem inspection and post-mortem inspection, wholesomeness inspection, you have public health officers from the Department of Health, inspecting the meat just to make sure that everything is okay for human consumption. The environment in which the animals are being slaughtered are really not food safety friendly, and this has to be taken care of. So when I say you have to enhance food safety, now once this is taken care of, then you'll find that consumers are going to have more confidence in locally produced meat and meat products. And by so doing, then you're going to stimulate growth in the livestock subsector, because more persons are going to want to go into small ruminant production, pig production, rabbit production, that sort of thing.
Right.
So it's a sort of chain reaction. Now, the site for the new meat processing facility, and you're aware, because of the DSH Pearl of the Caribbean project that's been implemented in the South, the facility that was built in the South, because of that, they agreed to build a new facility at La Pelle in Dennery, but to use the equipment from the existing facility so that there will be no need to procure new equipment.
Okay.
Right. So currently, the Department of Agriculture has gotten approval from DCA for the first phase, which is the site preparation and the building construction of the foundation. And there are these ongoing discussions with the Ministry of Physical Planning, the Department of Physical Planning, so that they can move ahead with the other approvals, right? So that's basically where we are with it.
The equipment you mentioned, the existing equipment at Beauséjour, do you think of the time spent not being utilized, you think the operational?
Yeah, in some instances, there might be issues to address regarding the equipment. So what they've done at the Department of Agriculture is to contact the suppliers to see if they will be willing to assist in terms of dismantling of the equipment and making sure that the equipment are all properly stored, and also the reinstallation of the equipment. So this will be done by technical persons who actually know what they're doing. So I guess this will take care of that issue. Yeah,
okay.
Hopefully.
In terms of time frame, where we at now, and how soon you expect that MPF to be in full operation so that farmers can say, yes, they have the throughput for that?
Clearly, to construct, it depends on what is decided. Are you going to construct it from scratch, the building? And there are two options. This, or the second option is to import a prefabricated building. All right, so all you do is to import it and you mount up. So these are the two options you're looking at. The second option that I mentioned can be done in a year.
Okay.
Yeah, the first option obviously will take somewhere in the region of 2 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So this has not been decided upon as yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So we can safely say we are all well on our way with that project.
Yes.
To a certain extent.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Let's look at the livestock station being moved from Beauséjour to Volette. Tell us about Volette, where we are, how many acres of land are we dealing with, and what is going to be happening at Volette?
Yes. As far as Volette is concerned, you remember the animals at Beauséjour?
Right.
They are at the South Willis Community College farm, awaiting the completion or sufficient completion of the Volette farm. What was done, although we had some issues initially because of inclement weather, it rained significantly down in that area, and the soil there has a high percentage of clay. So it's very slippery when wet. So that held us back in terms of clearing of the land and site preparation for the various pens. and structures. So quickly, we issued 4 contracts to 4 contractors. The first one was for the construction of 2 swine units, a fattening pen and a maternity pen. The second one for the construction of a rabbitry for rabbits and 2 small ruminant pens. The third one for the construction of a warehouse for the storage of feed and equipment, and also the construction of a stockman house to house the individuals who will be taking care of the animals. And the last one was for the construction of the road infrastructure and the drainage and also a bit of fencing. But with this first phase, I must say that the station will not be sufficiently completed to accommodate the animals coming back from South Louis Community College. So some funds have been made available by government. So the whole idea is to try as much as possible to complete the station so that it can be, it can accommodate the animals, and of course whatever else has to be done. So the focus now is on the construction of an administrative building, because you have to house your administrative staff and all the frontline officers in the south of the island, the quarantine officers, veterinary public health officers, livestock officers, animal health officers. You need to house them.
Okay, hold that point. We'll do for another break.
Yes.
You're watching Agriculture on the Move. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon.
COVID-19 is a new pandemic disease as declared by the World Health Organization. It is transmitted directly by respiratory droplets when an infected person coughs or sneezes, or indirectly through rubbing the face with contaminated hands. There is still no specific treatment or vaccine against COVID-19, and as such, the farming community should adhere to some special recommendations. Ensure that farm clothing and gear is clean. Wash hands thoroughly before harvesting crops. Use face masks and head ties whilst harvesting, cleaning, and packaging crops. Use all safety precautions when transporting crops to the markets and depots, such as handling crates and crops with only clean hands and covering sneezes and coughs with a tissue or the inner arm to ensure body fluids or droplets don't get on produce, and washing hands or using hand sanitizer after using the tissue. More than ever before, your important role as gatekeepers of St. Lucia's nutritional, health, and food security should be taken seriously. When you exercise these precautions, you not only safeguard your health, but also continue to allow all St. Lucians access to freshly grown fruits, vegetables, and other local crops. Remember, it is our responsibility to ensure our nation eats fresh, St. Lucia's best.
Welcome back to the program. Mr. Compton, let's go back to Volet again, because Volet is a new site. How many acres of land that we are dealing with up there? Apart from the challenges with the weather for the continuation of the projects, the buildings and the roads, and in terms of other infrastructure like water, electricity, where are we of this?
Yeah, we are currently in discussion with WASCO, and some funds have been already paid to WASCO for water connection. Unfortunately, the water has to be taken from the main road, the main Mikud road, and taken all the way in. So it's costing the ministry somewhere in the region of pretty near $600,000 just for the water alone.
All right.
And we are also in discussions with Lucia for electricity. As we speak now, they're down there trying to assess the whole situation. We have already paid them some money, but there'll be a difference to pay to them again. So all of that is taking place simultaneously so that we can try and complete the project as soon as possible.
And what was the deadline you mentioned for completion?
For Volet?
Yes.
Completion of this phase, probably we are looking at the next 4 months or so.
Okay.
The next 4 months, yes.
So that the animals from South Louis
yes.
can
be brought across.
brought
Because
across.
initially, the government of St. Lucia allocated $5.2 million for the first phase, and they have already allocated an additional $1.6 million. With the first phase, with all the road infrastructure and the drainage infrastructure, it's very costly. And so they have allocated another 1.6. We did ask for more, we requested more, but of course with COVID-19, of course, government had to reprioritize. But that is fine, that's understood. And I think the Department of Agriculture, they are going to make do with what they have. But the important thing is to try and finish the station to a point where the animals can move back to Volet. Yes.
Okay, I know there was a project at Boseju because they wanted to make Boseju into some farm of excellence at one point in time. They had the ISBA project. I was on stream.
Yeah.
Will that project continue, the ISBA project?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay.
No. The whole idea is to still have Volet be a center of excellence for farmers and for students, agricultural students.
Right.
So, you know, that has not changed.
Okay.
That has not changed.
And the services for the farmers in terms of artificial insemination, because I know right now there were some persons trained not only artificial insemination in bovine, but they have also looked at
Small ruminants.
and also
Yes.
swine.
Yes.
So that's
So all of that, yes, is taken into consideration. So the idea is for Volet not only to be a livestock station, but to be a sort of research station.
great.
Because you have to, I keep saying that agriculture is a science, and you know, you have to focus on having some sort of scientific approach to agricultural production. So they will be looking, I'm sure, at trials regarding grasses and legume species
Right.
that are suitable for our livestock in St. Lucia.
Livestock feed.
Trials regarding the mixed feed, a concentrated feed that's imported into St. Lucia. That's where the lab plays a major role.
Right.
You import feed, but sometimes you don't know what you're importing.
Correct.
You know, and then, so the feed can be tested to say yes, these are the ingredients that have been added in, and that's the nutritional status of the feed.
Right.
You know, trials regarding artificial insemination, breeding trials, the crosses between animals, for example, to get the sort of carcass quality that you're looking for. Particularly, if, you know, it has happened at Boseju with pigs, where they cross the Landrace and the large white and the Duroc to come up with the sort of lean carcass that you see when you slaughter a pig from Boseju. You know, so that sort of thing. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. So I'm happy to hear that is going well. I noticed there is also the construction of a ripening facility that is going to be done for the NFTO. Can you tell us a little more on that?
Yes. The whole idea is to be sure that fruits, bananas are housed in state-of-the-art ripening rooms to be stored and ripened for the market and for consumers. NFTO approached the Department of Agriculture for assistance to construct the ripening facility. And of course, the Banana Industry Trust Corporation is going through voluntary closure because they're closing down now.
Okay.
So there are some residual funds, and out of the residual funds, a bit of it was taken to assist NFTO. So the Department of Agriculture constructed the ripening room for them.
Okay.
So actually, they just completed it. And of course, there has to be discussion going forward with NFTO as to how the facility is going to be managed.
Okay.
Yes.
I know the unit was involved in the assistance of the BPIP when it came to oil for the farmers for spraying, and also the storage of tanks for oil. Could you give us a little update on that?
Yes, that was under the BAM program, which came to an end in 2018. But prior to, to coming to an end somewhere in 2016, 17, yeah, quite a huge quantity. To be honest, I can't remember the exact amount now, of oil was procured for the banana industry. And of course, the ministry had to increase the storage capacity significantly to accommodate all that oil. So yes, under the BAM program, that's the assistance that was given to the banana industry.
Okay. Now, I don't know whether you all are involved in the, I know union is being looked at in addition to the establishment of the lab, the diagnostic lab, also the administrative building, but the farm itself, again, looking at a farm, looking at the, for excellence. I know there's the zoo at forestry is being looked at, and there's reactivation of that. Is the unit involved in assisting?
No, the unit is not involved. But what I can tell you, the whole plan, the whole plan for union, when you look at all the services coming from the National Diagnostic Facility,
right,
the complex, because the facility, National Diagnostic Facility is going to be part of the agricultural complex.
Right.
They're next to each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, all the services coming from there that I mentioned earlier. Then you have the forestry department in close proximity,
right,
with all the services that they provide, and the zoo and all of that. You have the plant propagation station.
right,
Of course, they sell planting material to farmers, tree crops and fruit crops. And of course, they also sell ornamentals. You have the tissue culture laboratory, and they involve in micro-propagation and all the pineapples and the banana plants and that are being produced. You have the orchid production facility.
right,
You have the fisheries hatchery, and they're into the production of fish fingerlings for farmers who are involved in aquaculture production. And of course, so when you look at all the services that are being provided, the whole plan is for union to be the hub when it comes to providing services to the agricultural subsector.
yes.
So that's basically the whole plan.
Okay, let's go back a bit to the challenges that the agro-processors are facing. I know, okay, yes, they have the facilities already built for them, but I believe they're still facing numerous challenges. Would you want to speak to that?
Yes. If they are to thrive in St. Lucia, these challenges have to be addressed. And I remember was it earlier this year, the minister invited quite a few agro-processors to a meeting,
right,
to help understand the various issues they have to deal with and the various challenges. And it was a very interesting meeting. And it showed clearly that there are issues regarding poor operational, organizational, and financial management, as far as they are concerned. And you can tell that there is need for a lot of capacity building and a lot of training. I mean, when you look at, we have approximately 175 agro-processors on island. You have the very large ones like Baron Foods and Viking Traders. You also, and then down to the very small the women who operate from the kitchens in
yes,
sometimes
cottage industry.
The cottage industry, right? And some of the small ones and medium-sized ones, they form themselves into groups.
Correct.
But the issue there is they still, even though they are a member of a group, whether it's a cooperative or an association or whatever it is, they still see themselves as, individuals who want to achieve by themselves and not to achieve as a collective, if you know where I'm coming from.
Yes.
So clearly there has to be a lot of capacity building regarding business management, capacity building regarding product development. And we spoke about, the free labs at the facility,
yes.
Product development, food safety,
That's key.
all of these. And secondly, there are issues regarding access to finance in the form of credit. You know the issue with the banks and the way they treat farmers.
Yes.
And then agro-processors, the same thing. Farmers and agro-processors, they're not like public servants and hotel workers that earn a salary at the end of the month. They earn when they produce and sell. So there has to be a special arrangement for them when it comes to servicing their debt and servicing their loans and that sort of thing. There are issues regarding labor cost, the cost of labor. The small agro-processors try to do everything on their own instead of employing persons, because clearly they're concerned about their profit margin, you know, and that prevents them from expanding their businesses. There are issues regarding laboratory services, and we spoke about they having to work on their own. I mean, I was talking to an agroprocessor who's involved in making, a small agroprocessor, making one of her products, tamarind balls. And I was asking, what do you put in the tamarind balls? She puts in there a bit of hot pepper, a bit of black pepper, you know. She puts in a little baking powder.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can clearly see they're on their own.
Yes.
So when it comes to product development, you throw in all your nutrients, but at the end of the day, you can end up with a toxic product. You don't know. So you see where the scientific guidance has to come from to tell you, you know, what ingredients you should add,
and what amount,
and the quantities, and the chemical reactions that can, you know, all of these things, right? High cost of raw materials, you know, and also the seasonality of crops.
Oh, that's another one.
Yes, the utilities, the cost of utilities, electricity. Because if you're into agro-processing, there's a lot of storage that has to, if you're into juice production, the pulp has to be stored, you know. So all of these are challenges, and you can understand why the Department of Agriculture is trying to establish those agro-processing centers to assist them as much as possible, to cut costs.
Definitely. Okay, we're due for another break. You're watching Agricultural Move again. Stay tuned. Don't go away.
Sanitizer, better yet use soap and water. We must protect each other if we are to beat this corona.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. Be a soldier, together we can beat this corona.
So you don't become the next case. Avoid touching your face. I'm sure you've been told so. Handshakes and hugging a rock, no, no.
Advice is you to please. Cover your mouth and your nose if you cough or sneeze.
Practice social distancing and avoid large social gatherings.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. St. Lucia, be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
For further information, please contact the hotline at 311 or the Bureau of Health Education at 468-5349.
Welcome back. I'm sure you're enjoying the program because we really want you to understand the various projects, and we call them special projects, and that is why we have this special projects unit headed by Mr. Compton. And you have heard of so many projects that have been established. Some of them are completed and some of them are still ongoing and some of them is still to be built. But let's go back a bit to the diagnostic lab, Mr. Compton, and look at staffing, because that's one of the areas I believe that you know, you need to be well staffed and of course training. Could you give us a little on this?
Yes. The Department of Agriculture worked for a little over a year with the Ministry of the Public Service regarding all the various positions that are required to make the National Diagnostic Facility functional. And what happened is that there are quite a few positions, all the lab technicians and the assistant lab technicians. For example, you need a soil scientist, an entomologist, a nematologist, we need a microbiologist, a food technologist for sure. I know will be coming in this year because quickly we want to start working with the agro-processors, a parasitologist. So these positions are very important. So what happened is that the list of positions required were phased over a 3-year period. And then we looked at the positions that are urgently necessary for the first year, all right? And then less necessary for the second year, and the balance for the first year. So the list is now with Cabinet for approval.
Okay.
It should have been approved already, but with COVID-19,
Yeah,
a lot was held back.
Yes.
Yes. So we are hoping for some approval as soon as possible so that the positions can be advertised.
Okay.
Yes, so that was taken into consideration. Also, what was looked at was the reagents and the chemicals that would be required at the laboratory. Yeah, they've all been paid for actually, and the supplier is just holding back for when the facility is fully functional.
The
So
question
all of that is taken into
consideration.
Yes,
But
yes.
the question of training, before the positions are advertised, have you been getting requests, people coming in, and your existing staff, are you sending them on training at least to get themselves well equipped for the running of the facility?
Well, this is the most difficult part, this is the most difficult part. There was a bit of discussion with the Cuban government to see where we can get some assistance. And clearly, all the positions will not be able to be filled by St. Lucians.
Wow.
Yeah, there are some positions, there are quite a few that will be filled by St. Lucians. We have quite a few agronomists here. We have somebody who's into analytical chemistry. We have food safety, persons food training, food safety. We have food technologists. So quite a few of the positions will be filled by St. Lucians. But obviously some of them will have to bring people from outside. We don't have a soil scientist. I don't think we have a hematologist. You understand?
Oh.
So, but you can get them in the region, fortunately.
Okay.
Yes.
But let's go back to soil testing. That's one of the problems the farmers were facing. And of course, you can understand why. Farmers are fertilizing, and they're not reaping the reward in terms of optimizing production, and it is as a result of not knowing what the status of the soil.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Now you also have samples taken, but then the timeliness in actually giving the result to the farmer, that is a problem. That has been a perennial problem.
Exactly.
Can you see that after this facility is built, that will be no more?
Yes. Once we can bring in a soil scientist and all the necessary lab technicians and everything, once the list of positions are approved, I don't see a problem. I think the lab should be able to process those samples very quickly and provide the results to the farmers, because it's important. You cannot have a farmer waiting too long. Like I said earlier, if a farmer has planted his bananas and then, and he applies a nitrogen-based fertilizer, sulfate of ammonia or something like that, and the soil already has quite a bit of nitrogen, then you're going to end up having a very acid soil. The plant is not going to be able to make use of the nutrients in the soil.
That is right.
And exactly what you said. So the level of production that you're going to anticipate will not happen.
Right.
Will not happen. So clearly you can see that, like I said before, you have to have a scientific approach to agriculture. And that's where the lab comes in. There has to be an effort to make sure that all these samples are processed quickly. And you have all these positions in place to deal with the anticipated influx of samples.
And going back to the fertilizer, I can recall some years ago, there was a fertilizer company here, and they were doing physical mixtures of fertilizer, the NDP and the K. And for some reason, the banana farmers saw the results. The output was not there.
Exactly.
And I remember, we did not have that. I believe the union lab could not even really test per se. But then we went out, we took samples around the island, because I was one of those persons on that program. And do you know what was on the bag? The label. The label, was totally different.
Exactly.
And the farmer he was the one who identified this. Even there were deformed fruits. The fingers were deformed. And then that raised an eyebrow. And then we went out and we checked. And the other thing we found out, the 120-pound bag, when it was weighed, it was less. It was like we found 90 pounds in a bag.
Yes,
so
yes,
that
yes.
tells you how important it is for that lab to do all of those testing, because the farmer is spending money.
Yes. You know,
it's very.
Farmer is spending money.
He's spending his money, so he needs to get the returns that he wants. So I believe that, you know, I'm happy that that lab. I'm hoping that it'll be well staffed.
Yes.
And farmers, one of the days when farmers will be calling for their soil test results, you know, and
Exactly.
it's not there,
Exactly.
and it'll be done timely. And then I'm hoping that also the advice to the farmer is going to be there too, because once you bring the results back to him, then you have to tell him exactly what to do.
Yeah.
So the lab plays a very critical role in that regard.
Yes.
And as we're about to end, I really want to re-emphasize the fact that chemical traceability, Mr. Compton, that is key.
That is key.
You know,
yes.
so I just want you to, you know, at least highlight this again, to say that, to tell our consumers, because they are concerned. Farmers, consumers are going out there and they keep telling you that the farmers are using chemicals and the chemicals being used haywire, you know, but they need to know that, you know, there's a facility that can assist.
Yeah, and not that, but to trace back to the farmers. For example, if you go to Massey and you buy cabbages,
right,
you should be able to say, well, this cabbage was from Mr. James Brown,
yes,
from Del Saint Choiseul.
And that's right. And that's where the farmer registration is key.
Right, is key. So
yes,
you can trace all of that back to the farmer.
Yes.
And then he should be able to pay a penalty.
Definitely.
For that. But going back to the situation with the nutrient content of fertilizer, if you look at animal feed, for example.
That's another one.
Because when you have your broilers, you have your broilers for like 6 weeks. You can't mess around.
That's right.
You know, the feed.
To take it to that weight.
Yes, has to have the nutrients that will take the bird to that weight. Or I've seen it happen a lot with layers. You know, the farmers, you feed your layers for a long time, and then at the end of the day, when they're ready to lay, you end up with small eggs
yes,
and
yes,
soft
yes,
eggs, and
yes,
there's
yes,
a deficiency of calcium and phosphorus.
Correct.
And a huge deficiency. But yet on the label, it tells you that. So that's where the lab comes in.
It's very crucial.
You know, and before you import feed from a supplier, samples should be taken and tested.
Before it's imported.
Yes.
Any final words from you, Mr. Compton, as we're about to end?
Very short. I want to say that if we want to look at the sustainable growth of the agricultural sector, the agro-processing subsector, very important, the livestock subsector, and the crop subsectors, there has to be a scientific approach.
Yes.
And I don't have to say more.
Yes.
I mean, we've discussed it in detail. Yes. There has to be a scientific approach to agricultural production. Yes.
Well, Mr. Compton, I want to thank you for being here, and thank you for, you know, telling St. Lucians where we act with the various projects. And I wish you success, and I know you will continue to deliver for St. Lucia the various projects that are ongoing in the ministry.
Yeah, thank you
again for being here.
Thanks. Right.
You've been watching Agriculture on the Move. Thank you, viewers, for watching this program, and continue to do so. I just want to say to you that this program is presented by the Information and Communication Unit of the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries, Natural Resources, and Cooperatives. Stay safe. Corona is still around. Don't let down our guard. Thank you again for viewing. I'd like to say thank you to Roger at NTN for giving us the opportunity to be here so that program can be aired. Thank you again. I'm Philip Sidney. Goodbye. Yep. It's done, comrade.